and watch live video streaming right now and enjoy the actual visual presentation in living color used with a very cheap webcam and high definition. So if you like high quality stuff, you're going to like this show. Susie, I want to welcome you to Go Harrison, and I want to welcome you. You were testifying in front of Congress, if I'm correct, and Maxine Waters, about a year ago, and we had Maxine on the show, and we broke a big story about something so Herculean, so hideous, so vile, so unbelievable. Should I keep going? It is, isn't it?
If you want.
If I want. Yes, please go. It is so over the top. And what it is this notion of taking public buildings, it's the White House, let's just call that a public building, right? Because you and I own the White House. Am I correct in that?
I think so.
Or did we own the White House? Now we're getting down to the point. The Capitol building, a lot of this stuff is being converted into Section 8 housing. Now, I was talking to a guy who was wearing an Obama 2012 shirt yesterday, and I was telling him some of this stuff, and he's like, well, Section 8 is good. It's for poor people. Or not. And what did you learn, Susie?
So the grand scheme here, which is really the brainchild of Sean Donovan, who was our Secretary of HUD, but whose employment history also included Prudential Mortgage, basically had this plan to save public housing by mortgaging it off to banks.
Wow.
Save it from what? Poor people?
Well, what's happened is that public housing is $30 billion in need of capital improvements.
So that's 2 Pentagon missiles.
Right. So, well, to put that in perspective, it's about 3 months of tax cuts for millionaires.
Oh.
And so in order to quote unquote save public housing, the plan is to actually mortgage off to banks so that our taxpayer dollars would go to basically mortgage interest for decades and decades.
Wow.
Just to keep public housing, and it wouldn't even be public because they would convert it to Section 8. And there are definite differences between these two programs. Public housing is like our schools and libraries owned by the government for the common good. Section 8 is actually, and there's different forms of Section 8, but to some extent you get a voucher, similar to the educational vouchers that we've been talking about for years.
The vouchers that would let somebody
to
bypass public education and enjoy private education,
right,
thereby diminishing the quality and value of public education. But
right,
the taxpayer still pays. So
and in this case, the voucher would go to a private landlord who then would take 30% of the income from the tenant, and then the rest would be paid for by the government. And Section 8 is a fine program if it's in addition to public housing.
Yes.
But when you're talking about taking public housing and converting it to Section 8 in order to mortgage off to banks, that is where the problem comes in.
So I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We're going to go to news in just 1 second with Mercy Malik. I'm just going to recap and see if I understand this. So during the Bush years, they didn't, well, let's say the outreach to handle Section 8 housing if pipes burst and light bulbs burn out, it was minimal. And so now we have this huge bill of all this Section 8 housing from coast to coast, and things need to be painted and pipes need to be fixed, and then there's other public buildings that we're going to roll those in. We'll call it the White House, the Capitol building, other big stuff like that. And golly gosh, we're poor, we're bankrupt, we have no money to pay for it, there's nothing we can do. Oh, hold on, we need an aircraft carrier. Here, let me write a check right now. That's not a problem. Plenty of money for that. But Section 8 housing, we don't. Therefore, we go to Bank of America. For instance, can I say Bank of America?
Sure.
Why not? We go to Bank of America and we say, golly gosh, Bank of America, oh, yes, we bailed you out. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. By the way, the TARP money that we bailed out with you is basically at 0% interest, and then you took the bailout money that we all gave you from the taxpayers and then lent it back to the U.S. government at about 3 or 4% for profit, and then back to the taxpayer for a 49% interest rate on a Visa card. But other than that, we want to take out a huge mortgage coast to coast in the United States so that you can fix our Section 8 housing.
Public housing.
Housing, right? And then we'll pay you interest on that. And if we default on the payment, you then take over all of this and you can reconvert it into beautiful condos on the river. And we're going to get to that, Susie, because I know you have lots of information on that. But right now, it's time for a little news with Mercy Malik. And I'm going to push one of my buttons because I'm a technophile.
Go Harrison. News update.
Go Harrison News Time is 32 minutes past the hour, and I'm Mercy Malik with your reality check. Let's start off with another harrowing installment of Horror Stories of the TSA. Today's episode takes place right here in sunny Southern California and involves an extremely dangerous 95-year-old retired U.S. Air Force major in a wheelchair. The Detroit News reports that Major Omer Petty and his comparably youthful 85-year-old traveling companion, Madge Woodward, were detained last month by Transportation Security Administration personnel at San Diego International Airport whilst attempting to board a plane home to Detroit. Petty says that after the pair removed their shoes and jackets to go through security, one officer noticed that the elderly man had removed a money clip from a fold of bills amounting to $300, placing the clip on the conveyor belt and the bills back in his pocket. Petty says the officer then ordered him to place the cash on the conveyor belt as well, along with a Kleenex that was also in his pocket. Dangerous Kleenex. The elderly travelers were then taken to separate rooms for pat-downs, and upon their return, TSA personnel denied any knowledge of the $300, telling the pair that they must be confused. Petty has
I'm confused.
It's so appalling to me that they would take advantage of people that old and try to play off of their belief that they wouldn't remember. That they had, you would remember if you had $300. I'm just saying.
When I have $300, I never forget it.
You don't forget it. Petty has subsequently filed several reports, but has been told that videotapes of the incident were, quote, too blurry to be helpful. Right. His son Bill commented, quote, "You can bet if my father were a terrorist, those videos would not be too blurry." It's 34 minutes past the hour. And now, the first of many times we will answer the question, are the candidates all the same, with the statement, not so much. Reader-supported news reports that Mitt Romney is so enamored with the prospect of the controversial Keystone Pipeline that he intends to build it with his bare hands. Well, what he actually said was, quote, "I will build that pipeline if I have to myself," end quote. Speaking last Friday to the Republican National Committee's state chairman's national meeting in Arizona, Romney claimed that Obama has failed to follow his own commitment to a, quote, all of the above energy policy, saying, quote, "The president does like all of the above. He likes all of the energy sources that come from above the ground. So anything below the ground he doesn't like. Coal, oil, gas. We also like those below the ground," end quote. While Obama has not ruled out the possibility of the Keystone XL, he has deferred the decision pending further environmental studies. For Romney's part, he ended by thanking all of his former primary opponents by name, including Newt Gingrich, who is actually still running. Oops.
Oh my God.
It's 35 minutes past the hour. And finally, I could say an awful lot about this last story, but I'm just going to let it speak for itself. The Vatican has reprimanded the largest and most influential association of Catholic nuns in the United States for their promotion of, quote, radical feminist themes incompatible with the Catholic faith, end quote.
Oh my God.
Go nuns. The New York Times reports that the Vatican was particularly angered by the group known as the Leadership Conference of Women Religious for their questioning of the Church's teachings on homosexuality and for daring to suggest that admitting women to the priesthood might possibly alleviate the dramatic shortage of parish priests. Also, apparently galling to the Holy See were public statements made by the group in 2010 in support of what is now referred to as Obamacare. See, the American bishops had already expressed opposition to the plan, and nuns are expressly forbidden to, quote, disagree with or challenge the bishops, who are the church's authentic teachers of faith and morals, end quote.
Yeah, not mere facsimiles. They're the real deal.
Massive sigh. Well, despite that faith and morals part, Harrison, the group, along with another association of American nuns called Network, was also slapped down for spending too much time working with the poor. They were told to stop focusing on issues of economic justice and to start spending their time more constructively by decrying same-sex marriage and contraception. Oddly, Jesus had a lot to say about one of those things, but the other two, not so much. And the nuns' reaction? Sister Simone Campbell, executive director of Network, said simply, quote, I'm stunned. Us too, sister. Us too. For Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, 98.7 Santa Barbara, 93.7 San Diego, 99.5 Ridgecrest, China Lake. I'm Mercy Malik. You can be my friend on Facebook and send me news tips for your reality check.
News update. Harrison.
Hi, this is Meinhard Robbie, the oldest living Munchkin, and I'm very fortunate to be able to be here listening to Harrison.
Nice.
GoHarrison.com. You own the phone lines with Harrison. Call now. 310-737-TALK.
When I heard your show, I actually peed my pants laughing on the 405.
Cab drivers had it on, and they were big fans of yours. So just to let you know, the yellow taxi population.
Hey, Harrison, I was listening to your show last week on Saturday, and so I missed like the first 15 minutes of the movie. I'm out like $12, so I was wondering if, maybe you just mail me the check.
You're the most despised on my list. And believe me when I tell you I'm making a list.
Message marked urgent. Bag it. Hello, Harrison. I just want to let you know you're absolutely the best thing I've heard on radio or TV in my life. Wonderful. Keep up the good work.
I'm a 50-year-old black male, closeted bisexual, cross-country truck driver who is an extraterrestrial in a human body. I have made the dedication to be true to myself.
Occupy this. 310-737-TALK. Your free-thinking, non-conforming home of free speech radio. This is Harrison. Harrison contest giveaway. Gimme.
Yes, sir. It's 38 minutes past the hour, and we have a giveaway. We have tickets to tomorrow night's 8 p.m. Full Throttle Comedy at the Hollywood Improv on Melrose Boulevard here in beautiful kind of West Hollywood at the Hollywood Improv on Melrose. It features Ty Barnett and Taylor Williamson from The Last Comic Standing, along with a secret super guest. Ooh, a secret super guest. All you have to do is send us a text, 310-737-TALK, 310-737-8255. Send us a text. We have 50 pairs. Am I right? 50 total tickets, 25 pairs. Thank you for the math. 25 pairs of tickets to give away. That's tomorrow night at the Hollywood Improv, courtesy of us here at Go Harrison. Your chance to go giggle, laugh, and fun. When you do send the text to 310-737-8255 or 310-737-TALK, your name, your address. Your name, your address. And your email address.
No address, just email.
No way. Okay, what is it, Garrett? What do they need to do?
Their name, their address.
Your name and your email address.
Your name and your email.
And preferably your phone number so we can get back to you on your text.
All right, very good. We'll do that for sure.
Name, phone number, email address. Done.
Name, phone number, email address. How easy could it be? All right, very good. There, done. Back to Susie Shannon, back to the hero, back to the savior of all humankind. I know you think I'm over egging the pudding here. I am not. You, a year ago, brought us Maxine Waters, Susie Shannon, and it was a breaking story. We premiered it on KPFK. It was an exclusive. You guys had just gotten out of the HUD meeting. You talked about this, and then a couple of days later, she was savaged by the press for her husband and all kinds of naughty. I mean, oops. Incredible coincidence, right? And then the story kind of goes away and everyone gets freaked out and shuts up. Well, we're back. We're back, and through this omnibus bill, and just to sort of recap what we're talking about, the government has basically already done this. Am I correct in that?
Well, they have passed policy language within a very large omnibus bill last November. And what happened was they tried to get legislation passed which would allow them to do this. And they went to the Financial Services Committee, and Barney Frank, who was the chair of the Financial Services Committee, and Maxine Waters, who was the chair of the Housing Subcommittee, both said no. And Maxine Waters stood up and basically said, you will not privatize public housing under my watch. And so they made repeated attempts to do this, and Congress said no, basically. And so instead of, putting this before committees and having hearings on it, it was sort of snuck in there in the omnibus bill that passed last November with just very simple policy language. And so now what we're looking at is that the public housing authorities who oversee public housing now will put in basically to start mortgaging these properties. And so, the importance of this bill really is that this is the first time in American history that we have ever talked about passed mortgaging our public property.
And it's already done. That's the kind of the take-home message. It's not they're working on it, they're looking at it, it's already passed an omnibus bill.
Yes.
So what does that mean? It's law now?
That means it's law, and they're in the process of writing the regulations. And then the individual public housing authorities on the local level will basically earmark particular properties and say, we want to mortgage off this property. And then what happens then is that there's a mortgage with a bank with no cap on interest rates, with nothing to prevent them from taking that loan, bundling it, and selling it off to another bank. And so what happens is we have all the same problems that we had with private mortgages now in the public sector. And so not only will banks obviously get the mortgage interest from this, even if it doesn't go into foreclosure, but if the property did go into foreclosure, then it obviously raises questions about what happens to that property.
Okay, so I'm going to make a scenario here. So we're talking Section 8 housing coast to coast. Alaska to Key West.
Not just Section 8, right? Libraries and other public buildings.
Public schools.
So what this does is it sets a precedent for all other public property. So it sets a precedent for
Grand Canyon?
Right, for national monuments, for national parks.
Yeah.
It sets a precedent for libraries. It sets a precedent for schools. So we can imagine a future where your local school will be mortgaged off in order to fix the roof, a leaky roof, rather than that taxpayer dollars just going to pay for that. And ultimately, we end up paying more because we now have a mortgage that we have to pay interest on. So our taxpayer dollars will just get funneled into banking interest as opposed to just paying for the repairs, which is what we do now
and
for our public property.
Let's do scenario 9B. I'm making that up. Scenario 9B is it's come around, Congress, it's time to raise the debt ceiling again. And we go through what we did a year ago, and then the entire United States credit rating was downgraded. And then the market melted down, and we got it back up, up, down, much like a man over 50. Up, down, up, down.
Wow.
And now where is it now? It's back up.
Why did you look at me? I have no experience with men over 50.
Well, I don't either.
Okay,
but
good for you.
Garrett, you?
Oh, so many.
Yes.
I'm a sports guy. It's nothing but
He's
men
a
over
sports
50.
guy. That's true. It's old men over 50. So I'm gonna here's scenario 9B as we talk to Susie Shannon, who really is an advocate for the homeless, but this expands your breadth and reach because it's obvious we're all going to be homeless. So aren't you the one to look into this? Here's 9B. 9B is the Congress decides not to raise the debt ceiling on time. So that means that all of these mortgaged properties, as we politely call them, the White House, the Capitol Building, the Washington Monument, the
Your
Lincoln
kid's
Memorial,
school.
your kid's school, the library, as George Bush used to call it,
Library.
probably still does, and all these things coast to coast, they don't raise the debt ceiling, miss the payment by, 14 seconds. All of this stuff defaults to the banks, and now the banks actually own these properties, and because there are no restrictions or limitations, they can turn the national parks into, they can lease it, sell it to Disney, right? And they're credit default swapping as they did our private mortgages with our regular houses. Now they take public properties that are in this weird Section 8 category, and they're credit default swapping now federal property.
Right. So this is sort of the way that they've changed the paradigm is that we used to see a lot of the property that we own as infrastructure. And so now they're trying to say, well, this isn't infrastructure, these are assets. And so when you change that paradigm and
Except
you start
the people in the Section 8 housing
encouraging-
may not be considered assets.
Right, and that raises another question, which is that if banks actually have a mortgage, or not have the mortgage, but are holding the mortgage, will they participate in terms of what type of tenants, what type of financial review would have to be done of tenants before they come into these properties? So that raises a whole secondary issue here in terms of how this would impact new tenants coming in, how it impacts current tenants who have certain rights under public housing that they wouldn't have under Section 8. And so, this is like a long trend here of corporations coming in and trying to take over government services or finding ways to get taxpayer dollars funneled into their coffers. And so we've seen this in California in terms of Bank of America taking over our unemployment. And so they now manage our unemployment. So there are no more unemployment checks anymore. If people who are on unemployment get a debit card from Bank of America,
which bills out, I think it's in the $250 million a year to the state of California taxpayers to manage this thing that used to be managed by living, breathing humans through our taxes, which, by the way, I'm sure they all got laid off because Bank of America is now doing it.
Right. So it raises questions in terms of what happened to those workers. Mm-hmm. It raises questions in terms of who now has oversight over our unemployment funds. And California was one of the last states in the union to hand over their unemployment to a bank. Wow. And we've also seen this with Medicare in terms of Medicare being managed by Blue Cross now.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like these corporations go shopping for taxpayer dollars to have them funneled into their coffers, and it's happening kind of under the radar here because there aren't a lot of hearings and there's not a lot of government oversight before this happens. Like with the EDD, they just did it and they didn't need the approval of our state legislature. And so this is sort of just a long trend that we've been seeing in terms of privatizing these services, and our taxpayer dollars that we think are going to, fix a roof in public housing or to help out with our schools are actually getting funneled now into corporations. So it's like we talk a lot about outsourcing of military operations and that kind of thing, but it's actually happening everywhere across the board. And something that we need to, which it really should be illegal, because I feel that as a taxpayer...
Well, it's certainly unethical. It's certainly immoral. Is it illegal? Well...
I feel as a taxpayer that I'm partially an owner in this property that they're now making decisions on to just sort of mortgage off to banks.
Wow. We're talking to Susie Shannon. You're also seeing Susie Shannon as we live video stream at GoHarrison.com. GoHarrison.com. All of our shows are available next day at Ustream. Simply a keyword Go Harrison. Use that. And all the rest of it. Plus, we do our Hangouts on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Friday nights. GoHarrison.com at 6 p.m. where we bring on a variety of different kinds of radical guests and let you call in. Same kind of format. And we also invite you to enjoy that as well. Now it's time for us to celebrate activism. Time to get up off our large curd cottage cheese buttocks or our small curd, depending on where you live and how much you like to walk around.
Or your smooth skin.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. I know, like your boyfriend.
Oh, yes.
I've seen his pants. I can only... Never mind. It's time for us to get into action, into the solution, and out of the problem. It's time for Activism A Go-Go.
Cite your liberal might. Speak loudly and carry a big stick. It's time for Activism A Go-Go. Oh, yeah!
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier.
1, 2, 3. Activism A Go-Go.
Well, rocked by a drug and prostitution scandal, the Secret Service is hiring... Surface? The Secret Service is hiring the best crisis management expert on hookers and drugs in the world.
Bill Clinton.
Nope.
Sorry.
Another guess?
The mayor of D.C. Who was that? Marion Barry.
Oh, good guess.
Better yet.
New York, Elliot Spitzer.
The best crisis management expert on hookers and drugs in the world, actor Charlie Sheen.
Ah, yes.
One Secret Service agent was quoted as saying, quote, "We are hoping to look a lot better after Charlie shows up." Speaking of secrets, almost 3,000 people have been killed in covert missions from the U.S. drone program. This remote-controlled aerial vehicles are routinely used to launch missiles against human targets in other countries. And you can do your part to stop the drone attacks by signing the Code Pink petition against drone strikes. And that's Code Pink for Peace, the number 4, codepinkforpeace.org. Codepinkforpeace.org. Just click on the link, Ground the Drones. Well, George Zimmerman, accused killer of Trayvon Martin, was released from a Florida jail on Saturday night. The state of Florida, not sure how to handle the case, asked that Zimmerman be flown to an undisclosed location right in the middle of an Occupy protest. You could join Occupy LA on Saturday, May 1st for their general strike. Bike riders are going to be converging from the 4 directions in Los Angeles to the corner of 6th and Main at 2:30 in the afternoon to shine a spotlight on LA's homeless. For more information, go to Occupy May 1st, that's May number 1 st.org, occupymay1st.org. And former presidential nominee and philanderer John Edwards is in the news again. I like that, and philanderer, like, you know, and his criminal trial starts this week on the misuse of campaign funds to cover up an affair. The trial has inspired Obama's new campaign slogan, "Hey, at least I kept my pants on." And just for fun, you can join Public Citizen for their comedy benefit. Stand Up for Main Street. It's this Sunday, April 29th, at 6:30 p.m. at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills, 90211. For more information, citizen.org. Citizen.org. And one more quickie, the Big Week Out coming up in Pasadena, California. It's going to be a big gala benefit to benefit our friends at the AIDS Service Center. And you could go to aidsservicecenter.org, aidsservicecenter.org. And that's coming up, and it's about a 5-day junket in the beginning of May. And you eat at other people's houses and have a great time, all for the sake of having good, doing good, and saving lives. This has been your Activism A Go-Go. Written and produced by Susie Shannon, somebody that I think is sitting pretty much close to me, about 2.5 feet away, by the way. You see this progressive activist around town helping the homeless and fighting the good fight, all on 45 minutes of sleep a night. For more information on who, what, and where I left my pants, you can go to GoHarrison.com 24 hours a day, GoHarrison.com. And now it's time for our brand new feature, The Locker Room with Garrett Ritt.
To go from activism.
Harrison. It's The Locker Room.
Hey, what are you looking at?
And we go from activism right into celebrity guests, because there's nothing we like on the Go Harrison Show with sports except celebrity guests. Today's celebrity guest in sports is Gabrielle Union. You all know her from the hit movie out right now, number 1 in the nation, Think Like a Man. Well, she also happens, to all of the rest of us in the sports world, to be known as the girlfriend of one Dwayne Wade of the Miami Heat. Well, Union confirmed Friday on the Conan O'Brien Show that she has been banned from all Miami Heat games. Why, you may ask? By who? Well, by none other than Dwayne Wade. Yes, it turns out the Union has apparently a habit of talking some serious smack to opposing players, to refs, and even to Wade himself. Funny thing is that Union openly admits that she's a vicious heckler, having once told an Ola referee this past week to blow your whistle and get your Viagra. And to a more overweight player, pull up your shorts, your Spanx are showing.
Wow.
For his part, Wade says he'll think about moving her from her courtside seats up a section so no one can hear her on the court. And to our next story, the most expensive baseball card in the world was sold over the weekend. Collectors know it as the holy grail of the industry, of which I am a hardcore member. The 1909 Honus Wagner American Tobacco Card.
Honus?
The Honus Wagner. He's a Hall of Famer.
All right.
1909, only 200
I mean, of course
of them were
he is. Of course he is, yes. The Heisman Trophy winner of 1976.
Wrong sport.
Because he was holding out for more money back
Hockey?
then, they only made 200 of these cards. And only 60 of these are known to still exist. Most of them are in crappy condition. So, an online auction began last week, and the price of, anyone want to guess how much this card ended up selling for? Give it a whirl.
$2 million.
Ooh, I thought you were going to go less than that, but $1.2 million
Just like me to overshoot.
for this card. Experts rate it as the fourth best card of the kind. Its best one sold for $2.8 million last year to the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And this has been Garrett with The Locker Room.
Yeah, Garrett. Nice.
The Smart Show with Harrison.
All righty, we are just wrapping it up. We have about one more minute to go, and I want to thank our guest, Susie Shannon. Susie, progressive activist who for so many years has been out there doing the good fight. You have a website which can help homeless people. That really is your kind of key thing, but you do so much more. You fly to D.C., you testify in front of Congress, you put out the stuff, and you learn the stuff and bring it back to us. You are our personal mole without the hair on it. So thank you.
Wow.
And not the kind of mole that we have to have checked. It's the good kind of mole. What's the website where people can go and help out the homeless?
It's www.povertymatters.com and or .org. We have both. LA is the homeless capital of the United States. We should be talking about expanding public housing, not trying to mortgage it off to banks and getting rid of it. So I think that, anyone who can help out, organize on a local level, try to get Congress to make it illegal to mortgage off our public lands.
I think we're out, honey. Thank you so much. PovertyMatters.org. Harrison with you. GoHarrison.com. Have a great day.